To understand why Burkina Faso reclaiming its gold from Canada is so seismic, we must go back to when the country was still shackled by its colonial legacy. Burkina Faso was a nation whose resources were brutally exploited, where 90% of the population lived below the poverty line despite sitting on one of the largest gold deposits in West Africa. Their most abundant natural resource, gold, was mined and shipped abroad by multinational corporations, leaving the local people with nothing but deep pits and environmental pollution. For decades, 85% of the gold production was exported raw to Canada and other Western countries for processing and value addition. This meant Burkina Faso received only 15% of the true value of its own resources. The impact of this was devastating. A GDP per capita of just $870 a year, youth unemployment at 77%, and 44% of children suffering from malnutrition. Meanwhile, Canadian companies like Endeavour Mining and Orezone Gold raked in billions of dollars each year from Burkina Faso's gold mines. International financial institutions like the World Bank and the IMF also played a crucial role in maintaining this dependency. They provided loans with strict conditions, forcing Burkina Faso to follow liberal economic policies, opening its market to foreign investment without protecting national interests. The opportunity cost of this was enormous. Instead of developing a domestic processing industry and creating millions of jobs, Burkina Faso remained merely a supplier of raw materials to the developed world. For decades, experts from the World Bank and international organizations insisted that exporting raw materials and attracting foreign investment was the only path to development. They presented figures, reports, and recommendations that seemed irrefutable, arguing that Burkina Faso lacked the technology and capital to process its own gold. They were dead wrong, until Ibrahim Traoré appeared and completely changed the game. Ibrahim Traoré is not your typical politician or Hollywood celebrity. Born in 1988, he is a young military officer with a bachelor's degree in geology and a master's degree in computer science. Hailing from a poor farming family in a rural area, Traoré understood the suffering of people living in poverty amidst a land rich in resources. His experience in the military taught him about discipline, organization, and the importance of unity. His most prominent character traits are his decisiveness and his ability to turn words into concrete actions. On September 30th, 2022, Traoré came to power through a military coup that was enthusiastically supported by the people. This was brought about by the overwhelming frustration of the populace with the previous government, where corruption was rampant and national interests were sold out to foreign powers. The initial reaction from Western countries and international organizations was skepticism and concern, but the people of Burkina Faso welcomed it with great hope. When Traoré assumed the role of president of the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration, his first message was simple but resolute. Burkina Faso will regain control of its own resources. We will no longer let foreign corporations exploit our country without bringing commensurate benefits to our people. But unlike the empty promises of previous politicians, Traoré had prepared a specific, scientific, and feasible plan. The first phase, called Assessment and Control, lasted 6 months. The goal was to review all existing gold mining contracts and determine the exact volume of gold being mined and exported each year. The method involved establishing an independent inspection team, hiring local geologists, and building a transparent monitoring system. The necessary resources were primarily available manpower and the existing state budget. The expected outcome was to get a comprehensive picture of the gold mining situation and identify the shortcomings to be addressed. The second phase was negotiation and restructuring, lasting 12 months. Based on the information gathered in Phase 1, the government would renegotiate all contracts with foreign companies. The scope would be expanded by applying new terms to all future mining projects. The anticipated challenge was pressure from corporations and foreign governments, but the solution was domestic unity and seeking new partners from countries with shared interests. The third phase was developing self-reliance with a 5 to 10 year vision. The goal was to build a domestic gold processing industry, from refining to producing jewelry and gold bars. The international impact would be to transform Burkina Faso from a raw material exporter into a producer of high-value gold products. Sustainability would be ensured through investment in education, human resource training, and the establishment of strict environmental standards. The most important thing that made the difference was that everything would be done by the people of Burkina Faso, with the resources and intellect of Burkina Faso. No aid from the World Bank, no loans from the IMF, no dependence on Western technology, no need for foreign experts. And then on March 15, 2023, the miracle began. March 15, 2023 will be recorded as the day Burkina Faso changed forever. There were no loudspeakers urging action, no top-down propaganda, no threats or coercion. There was only a simple message passed from mouth to mouth, from village to village. It is time for us to take back what belongs to us. Every gram of gold that leaves this country is a gram of our children's hope being taken away. The people's response was immediate and more powerful than anything Traoré could have imagined. In Pony Province in the south, home to the largest gold mine operated by the Canadian company Endeavour Mining, thousands of local workers voluntarily joined the export control team. They used simple tools like electronic scales, handheld metal detectors, and manual ledgers to track every kilogram of gold transported from the mine. In the very first week, they discovered a 23% discrepancy in reported mining volumes. The morale of the people was incredibly high, filled with excitement and pride as they felt, for the first time, that they were protecting their national assets. In Bam province in the central region, characterized by its complex terrain and difficult transportation, a 67-year-old woman named Aminata Ouedraogo said, "I have lived for 67 years and have never seen my country so rich. Not because we have more gold, but because for the first time that gold belongs to us." A touching detail was high school students volunteering after school to help record data, turning resource protection into a practical educational movement. The local challenge of transmitting information between remote mines was solved by a system of text messages via mobile phones and local radio broadcasts. In the capital, Ouagadougou, the scale of the movement was even more impressive, with over 50,000 people participating in support activities. The unique contribution of this region was the establishment of the National Gold Information Center, which collected and processed all data from mines across the country. Inter-regional coordination was achieved through a system of daily radio reports and weekly newspaper summaries. What was astounding was not just the scale or speed, but the spontaneous spirit of unity among the people. The story of Mamadou Traoré, a 34-year-old mechanic in Kaya, became a symbol of this movement. Coming from a family of 8 siblings, he had to drop out of school early to earn a living. He faced hardship raising a wife and 4 young children on a salary of just 45,000 CFA francs a month. His motivation to join was simple. "I want my children to grow up in a rich country, not a poor one like me." His concrete action was to build simple weighing devices and teach hundreds of people how to use them. He shared his personal feelings. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I am doing something meaningful for the future." But the gold protection movement was not just about emotion or spirit, it was about science, organization, and operational efficiency. The distribution system was organized in a pyramid model with the center in the capital, regional centers in 13 provinces, and data collection points at each mine. The division of labor was clear: a mining monitoring team, a transport inspection team, a data recording team, and a data analysis team. Coordination between teams was done through daily meetings at 6 a.m. and a consolidated report at 6 p.m. Conflict resolution was handled through a council of local elders and the principle of consensus. Simple technology was used, including high-precision electronic scales, GPS to pinpoint the exact locations of mining sites, digital cameras to record the transportation process, and smartphones to transmit data. Resourcefulness was key, using equipment from old agricultural projects, recycling building materials from abandoned constructions, and mobilizing people's personal vehicles. Small inventions emerged, such as creating gold container seals from local materials and developing QR codes to track each shipment. The communication system combined radio, mobile phones, and the internet where available. Quality assurance was implemented through a three-step verification process at the mining site, at the collection point, and at the export center. Measurement and tracking were done by recording every transaction in ledgers and synchronizing them with the central system daily. The feedback and improvement process took place through weekly review meetings and adjusting procedures based on practical experience. Transparency was ensured by announcing the daily figures on national radio and allowing any citizen to inspect the ledgers. A specific example at the Essakane mine in Oudeland province saw a team of 200 local people establish a 24/7 monitoring system. The process began at 5 a.m. with checking the seals from the previous night. From 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., all mining activities were continuously monitored, with every truck entering and leaving being recorded. The biggest challenge was the Canadian company deliberately changing transport schedules to evade control. But the solution was to deploy a 24/7 team and immediately report any unusual changes. The results showed that in the first month, 18% of undeclared production was discovered, and in the second month, an additional 31% of the gold's value was found to be underrated compared to the international market. The measured results after the first 3 months were impressive. The total amount of controlled gold increased from 15% to 78% of the national output. The revenue for the state budget increased from 120 billion CFA francs to 387 billion CFA francs in just 1 quarter. But the most impressive figure was not the dry statistics, but the change in national pride. For the first time in decades, the people of Burkina Faso felt proud to speak about their country on the international stage. The spirit of unity was demonstrated by different ethnic groups working together for a common goal, regardless of religion or origin. Confidence in the future was reflected in a 43% decrease in emigration, and many expatriates began planning to return to contribute to their country. The self-perception shifted from a poor country in need of aid to a resource-rich, developing nation. On site, a choked-up Ibrahim Traoré said, "Today is not just the day we take back our gold. This is the day we take back our dignity, our belief in ourselves. I see in the eyes of every Burkinabe the light of hope. We have proven that when united, nothing can stop us. This is just the first step. We will continue until every gram of gold, every hectare of land, every natural resource serves the happiness of the people of Burkina Faso." Economically, the GDP per capita increased from 870 to 1,840 in just 6 months, the fastest growth in the nation's history. Employment in the gold mining and processing sector increased by 267%, creating 89,000 new direct jobs and 156,000 indirect jobs. The trade balance shifted from a deficit of $890 million to a surplus of $1.2 billion thanks to exporting processed gold products instead of raw materials. Foreign investment from Asian and Middle Eastern countries increased by 440%, replacing dependence on the West. A before and after comparison shows the state budget tripled, allowing for massive investment in education and health. In social life, the most visible changes were in rural areas. Regarding nutrition, the child malnutrition rate dropped from 44% to 28% thanks to a free school meal program funded by the National Gold Fund. For housing, over 120,000 families received support to build new homes or renovate old ones with high-quality materials. In clothing, the domestic textile industry flourished with new investment, producing affordable and quality clothes for the people. For transportation, the rural transport system was improved with 2,400 kilometers of new roads and 340 small bridges built. Education witnessed a true revolution as the primary school enrollment rate increased from 61% to 89% in just one academic year. The quality of education was enhanced by building 850 new schools and recruiting 12,000 well-trained teachers. Notably, a curriculum on natural resources and national sovereignty was introduced, helping the younger generation understand the value of their national assets. Healthcare also made significant strides, with the average life expectancy increasing from 61.2 to 64.7 years in 2 years. The infant mortality rate decreased by 34% thanks to investment in primary health stations and a comprehensive vaccination program. 45 new hospitals were built in remote areas, ensuring people did not have to travel far for basic medical care. The security and social safety situation improved markedly, with the crime rate dropping by 52% due to increased employment and better living standards. In particular, terrorist attacks decreased sharply as local people actively cooperated with security forces to protect national resources. Testimonials from various walks of life show the comprehensive change. Aicha Compaore, a 42-year-old farmer in Gurma: "I used to have to sell my corn at a dirt cheap price to buy medicine for my child. Now, with a new job at a gold processing cooperative, my family's income has increased fivefold." Burema Sawadogo, a 38-year-old teacher in Lorum: "I taught for 15 years in makeshift classrooms. This year, for the first time, I have a permanent classroom with enough desks and books for all my students." Dr. Rasmata Uatara, 35, in Cascades: "Our hospital went from a shortage of medicine to an abundance of medicine and modern medical equipment." Psychologically and spiritually, the mindset shift was the most incredible. The people of Burkina Faso went from being self-conscious about their African origin to being proud of their identity and capabilities. Trust in the government increased from 23% to 87% according to an independent survey. Confidence in the future was demonstrated by 78% of young people now wanting to stay and develop their country instead of emigrating. Observed behaviors include people voluntarily participating more in community activities, fewer internal conflicts, and a higher spirit of cooperation. A new culture formed around the annual Gold Day festival to honor those who contributed to protecting national resources, and a tradition of storytelling about the heroes who protected the nation's treasures. A concrete example of this change is Ousmane Kabore, a 28-year-old computer engineer in Bobo Dioulasso. He was previously preparing his application to immigrate to Canada, viewing Burkina Faso as a country with no future. Since the gold protection movement began, he decided to stay and founded a tech company serving the gold mining industry. He is now the CEO of a startup with 45 employees and an annual revenue of 2.8 billion CFA francs. His life has completely changed because he realized that the opportunity to build a career and contribute to society right at home was much greater than becoming an immigrant abroad. The most vivid visual evidence is the before and after pictures of the same locations. In the town of Essakane in 2022, there were only makeshift huts and dusty dirt roads. The same location in 2024 has permanent houses, paved roads, a school, and a modern health clinic. At the Karma gold mine, there used to be only the Canadian company's machinery and workers in hazardous conditions. Now, the same area has a modern gold processing plant built and operated by Burkina Faso with international safety standards. The impact rippled beyond Burkina Faso's borders like ever stronger waves, making the entire region and the world pay attention. In West Africa, the reaction from neighboring countries was very positive and interested. Mali sent a delegation to learn from the experience and began applying a similar model to its gold mining sector. Niger announced plans to review its uranium contracts with French companies. Ghana and Senegal began renegotiating the terms of their resource extraction contracts with foreign corporations. Policies of learning and replication began to appear as Guinea decided to apply the community monitoring model to its bauxite mining industry. Ivory Coast established a National Resources Committee to study the feasibility of applying Burkina Faso's experience to its cocoa industry. Mauritania began testing a system for tracking iron ore exports using technology similar to Burkina Faso's. New regional cooperation included the establishment of the West African Resources Alliance, with the participation of 7 nations to share experiences and support each other in protecting natural resources. Burkina Faso became a training center for resource management for the entire region with the establishment of the African Resources Institute in Ouagadougou. The shift in the regional balance of power was clear as Burkina Faso transformed from being considered the weakest nation in the region to a model for self-reliant development. Burkina Faso's influence in ECOWAS increased significantly as many of its policy proposals were supported by other countries. On the world stage, the initial reaction from international organizations was cautious and skeptical. The United Nations passed a resolution praising Burkina Faso's innovative efforts in natural resource management. The World Bank, after a period of silence, acknowledged that the Burkina Faso model has challenged traditional notions of economic development. The IMF was forced to adjust its policy recommendations for African countries after witnessing Burkina Faso's success. International development experts began to make positive remarks. Professor Jeffrey Sachs from Columbia University commented, "Burkina Faso has proven that the path of self-reliant development is not only feasible, but also far more effective than the aid-dependent model." Dr. Dambisa Moyo, an African economist at Oxford, stated, "This is a perfect case study of how African countries can solve their own development problems without Western intervention." The international investment community reacted with surprising positivity as Burkina Faso's investment risk rating was upgraded by credit rating agencies from CCC to BB+ in just 18 months. FDI flows from Asia increased by 680%, mainly from China, India, and the Middle East. Venture capital funds began to take an interest in Burkinabe tech startups, especially in fintech and agritech. In the African diaspora community, the reaction was overwhelmingly positive and proud. The African community in the US organized dozens of events to celebrate Burkina Faso's achievement. In Europe, many African organizations launched fundraising programs to provide strong support within the global diaspora. Many second and third generation people of African descent in the US and Europe began to take an interest in learning about African culture and history after witnessing Burkina Faso's success. Most notably and surprisingly, Burkina Faso became an attractive tourist destination for the global African community. The Roots tourism program attracted thousands of visitors each year who wanted to witness the African miracle firsthand and learn about their ancestral cultural heritage. The second lesson on the value of unity shows that Burkina Faso's success did not come from a single genius, but from the collective strength of 22 million people working towards a common goal. Everyone from children to the elderly, from farmers to intellectuals, contributed according to their ability. A vivid example is students participating in data recording, mothers and homemakers cooking for the monitoring teams, and army veterans providing security at the gold mines. In any project or goal, the power of a united community always surpasses individual efforts. The third lesson, on the importance of a clear vision, demonstrates that Ibrahim Traoré not only had a short-term plan, but a clear long-term vision that helped everyone understand they were contributing to something larger than themselves. Every citizen who participated knew that what they were doing today would affect the lives of their children and grandchildren in 20-30 years. A specific example is miners voluntarily participating in production control because they believed it would give their children a better chance at a good university education. This teaches us that any project needs a clear and effectively communicated long-term vision to motivate everyone. The fourth lesson on the power of simple solutions shows that Burkina Faso did not use complex or expensive technology, but applied simple, easy to understand, and easy to implement methods. Electronic scales, ledgers, mobile phones, these are all familiar tools that anyone can use. What matters is not the complexity of the technology, but the effectiveness of organization and coordination. This lesson applies to all fields, from business management to community organizing. Sometimes the best solution is the simplest one. The fifth lesson on the importance of execution shows that good ideas and plans are only valuable when they are implemented with perseverance and consistency. Burkina Faso turned words into concrete actions every day, every hour. They didn't just talk about controlling gold, they actually placed people at every mine, recorded every gram, and tracked every shipment. Success comes from 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. This reminds us that execution is the decisive factor in the success or failure of any project. These lessons are not just applicable to Burkina Faso, but to any community, organization, or individual in the world facing challenges and wanting to create positive change.